with it, world? I'm your host, Sleepy J, and this is my co-host,
Coach Rudy, and we have some breaking news coming up.
We are the Champs Podcast, if you guys didn't know, because I skipped that, trying to switch up how we're doing this. But,
also, want to give a big shout out to the man on the ones and twos, Mr. Kyle Matthews. Keep your mouth quiet.
And quit throwing the ball for Mo.
So some breaking news I didn't mention to you.
Okay.
Who's that fella that made that challenge?
You talking about the Paul brothers?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, what about it?
So, I got some news from them this week.
Okay.
So, apparently, they got my address.
Oh.
And they want to come and have the fight. I mean, I'm assuming it's them. It was a white boy on Twitter who was talking noise, so it's got to be them, right?
Oh, you think he's a listener?
Probably.
You think
Sounds
so?
like the stalker type.
Yeah. That is breaking news. I did want to bring that up. I'm glad you brought that up. For those of you that don't know, Coach Rudy will respond to different other sports pundits that are talking sports or whatever from time to time. He'll live tweet from time to time watching sports. And some fella thought he was a tough guy and got all in his feels because Coach Rudy was talking factual sport stats.
Yeah. Versus
opinions.
Opinions that were hidden behind the word fact.
Which is funny to me. Guys, like, we are objective pundits of any sport that we talk about. We can say if we don't know enough about something, we can say that we do enough about it. And we will back our arguments up based in the facts. We're not going to make up, oh, well, I just really like this guy. And if we are, we're going to tell you, like, well, I like him better than this person, period.
Yeah, if it is totally a feeling thing, we'll say that.
You're right.
It rarely is something that we feel that way about.
Yeah. So that being said, this guy got all in his feels talking about how, it was Dak, right?
Yeah.
Talking about how horrible Dak is. And he can't be a listener, because if he was a listener, he would know how we defend Dak in the sense of we've gone through his stats. We've talked about his stats.
Yeah.
Not just for this season, not just for last season. Yeah.
And, you know, we made no apologies about the fact that his first year, when people said he should have been MVP, that he shouldn't have.
Right.
That it was Zeke that should have been the MVP.
Right.
And that even that first year, we would have put Romo back in unless we felt that Romo was going to die.
Yeah. So that being said, it's a new high point for the podcast in the sense that you've pissed somebody off so much so.
Oh yeah, so this dude called me a wetback. He thought that was gonna hurt my feelings. I mean, he cursed me out on there, and he thought I was gonna shut up about it. He put my address on there, and he thought I was gonna get scared or something. Look, it's not like I'm wanting strange people to come up, but I mean, what am I gonna do? Hide from somebody? I ain't hiding from nobody.
Right?
If you have it in you to look me up, you want to come meet me, I ain't running. I got shit to do, so I might not be home. But if I'm home, I'll come out there. And
keep in mind, people, we're in Texas. And if you know about Texas is, well, I'm not inviting anybody. You're not inviting anybody.
But I can stand my ground.
Yeah. That's what I wasn't going to say. So, no premeditation. Just saying. It's your right as a Texas resident to stand your ground.
That's all I'm saying. So let's go ahead and go on to...
But, so what I heard from this was Jake Paul didn't accept it. He sent a crony to come over.
Hey, they're all the same to me. Somebody wants it, I'll deliver. But I ain't going to be paying for it.
Right. Well, to the fella, if you are listening, I just think it's funny that you deleted. Like, you were big and bad to say what you said, and then you deleted it. I'm just saying, ain't nobody worried about you and your 6 followers. Because I didn't see it happen. You called me and told me about it. I said no. And then while you were talking to me, I took it upon myself to go through the tweets. I seen you had an interaction with somebody who had been deleting their tweets. And the only one that he kept was the first original tweet response. And maybe 2. And then after that, the last 4 or 5 he deleted. And it goes back to what me and you always say, like, can you stand on the things that you are going to say and not be worried about the consequences to the things
about getting fired, about
right.
having. I mean, look, here's the reality of it. If he were to do something were to happen to me within the next couple months, whatever have you, who's going to be the number one suspect?
That guy.
That guy. And when he gets caught, he would be prosecuted for hate crime because he called me a wetback.
Yep.
And he would be prosecuted because he's the one that put the threats out there.
Oh, and for those of you that don't know, I don't know how many people didn't know this, but did you know that your tweets go into the Library of Congress? So, however remedial or nonsensical you think they are, for some reason the Library of Congress thought that this was data that they should keep track of and put it in there. So there's a record of it even if you delete it.
I mean, yeah, look, this is, if he thought that he was going to get away with something,
yeah,
then he's dumb for it.
Right.
If he came to his senses and was like, oh shit, you know what, this is going to get me in trouble, let me back off. Good for him. Glad some sense got knocked into him before some else got knocked into him. But so let's go ahead and go forward with some really provocative thoughts. Should the New England Patriots fire Belichick?
So I seen this being proposed on another sports show, and they were saying, because I mean, if you guys don't know, the whole thing with Belichick is, one, obviously on this podcast we believe that he's a cheater. There's nothing wrong with that if you don't get caught. If you're winning at that, if you're cheating and you're winning, like
if you're cheating and losing, then
yeah,
what the hell you doing, man?
But if you're cheating and winning, like if I'd prefer it to be my team doing it, but if not, you're a cheater and we don't like you.
Look, I ain't promoting cheating. I understand it though.
But nonetheless, our point is that Belichick has had a rough patch since him and Brady have parted ways.
This is my problem with the question, because a lot of times what gets thrown out there is that in his 9 years without Brady, like if Brady left 9 years ago,
right?
Like that's kind of how they're trying to spin it.
Right.
In the 9 years without Brady, he only had one playoff win or one playoff appearance. Right. And the problem is, look, he had some years before Brady.
Yeah.
Which everyone admits, the fact that he was in Cleveland, you can kind of wash that away.
Right.
Those years really don't count.
Right.
And if you're not counting that, which most people didn't while he was with Brady,
right,
then just start since Brady left.
Right.
In the 3 years since Brady left, you went to the playoff once. Right now, you're on track to go to the playoffs again.
Yeah.
And that other year, you missed it. Yeah. But the reality is, the reason Brady left is because he knew the team sucked, so he wanted a chance to do something.
The thing about it is Belichick's a defense coach, right? Like, defense is his thing. And everyone thinks because of the Brady thing and how Brady went to these Super Bowls that he's an offensive coach. But one thing that we talked about earlier in the season was, by week 5, week 6 is whenever the defense starts to firing on all cylinders and starting to make sense.
If you want to beat a Bill Belichick team, your first 4 weeks, he's up for grabs. Right. 4 or 5 weeks, you can definitely take it. After that, it's going to be a hard game.
Yeah. And proof is in the pudding. We talk about, we've mentioned this before. Last season we mentioned it. This season we mentioned it. It is the proof. So to answer this question, do I think Robert Kraft will fire him? I don't think so. Could he? If he did, I wouldn't be necessarily surprised either. I mean, if they don't make a solid run, they don't do very well in these playoffs, then sure, maybe it's on the table. But we're not, I mean, like you were saying, when Brady was there, he didn't go every season. It wasn't every season they were going to the Super Bowl. They weren't having back-to-back victories and all this and that every season. I had the argument earlier this week with somebody about how they were telling me how Brady's the best quarterback. Because they wanted to argue with me that Mahomes wasn't the best quarterback, that Brady was the best quarterback. And I was like, now I hear the argument, but I was like, I'm taking for the first 5-6 years of both of their players. I was like, and I argued how Mahomes was the better quarterback. Now, with that being said, he didn't believe me. He wanted to say, well, Brady has these rings. I was like, yeah, over the course of 22 years. So which one are you arguing on your behalf? Are you going to argue that Brady has 7 rings over 22 years? Or are you going to argue that he's the best quarterback because of his whole career? He's had such immaculate numbers. And at the end of it, he held on to the Super Bowls. And I was like, okay. I said, well, going off of your Super Bowls, I said, I'm going to say Mahomes has made 2 appearances, 1 win, been in the playoffs 4 years in his first 5 years.
Conference championship at that.
And we didn't have that with Brady. So I stand on my argument that Mahomes is the better quarterback. If you want to go season for season for the first 5, or if you want to go,
it took
Tom
Brady 7 or 8 years before he had a breakout year like Mahomes had in his first official year.
Yeah, and
second technical, first official.
And I also brought up the fact that if Mahomes decides that he wants to go 22 years, because again, I never thought about it before. I just assumed every player goes for the maximum amount of years whenever they are superstars. But as you said, he probably is not going to make more money than he did on this current contract. Maybe if he does, he's not going to get the same amount of years on the contract. They're only going to give him maybe 3-4 more years, giving him a boost in his pay. But they're not going to actually, most likely, they're not going to maximize his contract. He's already got the maximized contract that he'll probably get in his career. So if he doesn't play after this contract is up, are you going to be surprised that he walks away and say, like, I got my Super Bowls.
I got $500 million. I think I'll be okay.
Right. And I got my Super Bowls. I've made more than one appearance. Like, I'm going to be fine. I'm good. I don't have nothing to worry about in my stat life. Because there's players that never get a Super Bowl ring. Me and you often find players like, man, I really hope they find their way to a team that gets them to a Super Bowl. Because we know that that's what it's all about when you're playing in these sports.
So, looking at the Patriots, right?
Yeah.
Over the last 9 weeks, they have a 6-3 record.
Okay.
Which is pretty damn good. 6-3 is a record that most teams will say, yeah, you give me 9 games and I'm winning 2/3 of them all day.
Yeah.
Right?
Respectable.
Now the first 4 weeks, he was 1-3. New England was 1-3. Now, I've always maintained that the first 4 weeks, you have to win at least 1 game.
Yeah.
If you win 1 or 2 games, you're good.
Right.
Well, what did they do? They won 1 game.
Yep.
And then they went on to win 6 out of the next 9 games.
Yep.
And when you look at who their opponents are coming up, they got the Raiders.
Okay.
Raiders aren't playing very good. I mean, they're not playing as horribly as what they were early in the season.
Right.
But that's a winnable game.
Okay.
Then they're going to end the season with 2 divisional opponents. The Dolphins at New England. The Dolphins now have lost 2 in a row.
Yeah.
And they get a second shot at the Bills. Who, remember, last year they beat the Bills in one of those close winnery games, and it's going to be in Buffalo, so they might do that same mess. They do got the Bengals after the Raiders.
Okay.
And even though the Bengals are playing well right now,
yeah,
I mean, look, it's a 9-4 team versus a 7-6 team.
Yeah.
as the standings currently stand. It's not like, oh, they're a vaunted team.
Right.
Realistically, let's say the Patriots lose 2 of these games.
Yeah.
Okay? If they lose 2 of these games, they're 9-8. That's not horrible.
Right.
But if they can manage to just lose one of these next 4 games,
Yeah.
which is possible, that's a 10-win team.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, even right now at 7-6,
Yeah.
their record is better than one Tom Brady, who's 6-7.
You know, I know this wasn't on our topics of things to talk about, the whole Tom Brady situation, but the argument around Tom Brady and of is he going to birth this playoff run? Can he do it? Can he actually go all the way? Because some people pick Super Bowl winners before the season starts, and they just held their hat on it's Tom Brady, and he's going to do well. There are some people that were in a heated argument, got pretty nasty, and I think it's funny because you got into an argument over Dak, and these people got into an argument that people are speculating on whether or not this sports show will still continue on, which I'm going to take it that they had a bad day. You know, people have bad days at work. They seem to have moved on past
If y'all
it.
don't know, he's referencing Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless, 2 of common people that we have on Stupid Takes.
Yeah.
Now, in this case, once again, it leans more towards Skip Bayless. Skip Bayless resides in Stupid Takes.
Yeah.
He's got his own seat there because he is one of the kings of being stupid.
Yeah.
So they had a back and forth.
Yeah.
And it was really stupid because Skip Bayless took it personal that Shannon Sharp was stating that Tom Brady wasn't having a good year. Not that Tom Brady sucked. Not that Tom Brady didn't have a great career, but that Tom Brady was not having a good season and thus is probably not going to do anything and shouldn't be trusted to be expected to go deep in the playoffs because his team sucks and he's not playing well. Well,
go ahead.
Skip was talking reckless as though he's Tom Brady's father or boyfriend or something. Like he got personally offended by this, which is just
and you know it was
ignorant.
a real argument because his voice broke. Like he got so mad and he just started saying, I don't know. There's just like
taking personal shots at Shannon.
The tantrum that you hear whenever certain people, you know that they've hit their point. Their voice cracks. They're not getting out what they're trying to say. They're just like making a lot of noise and trying to overshadow you. That's what happened here. And the only thing that makes this relevant is the fact that we're talking Tom Brady and Belichick. Like, honestly, it has nothing to do with anything other than the fact. But just
an aside.
Yeah.
But, so it's stupid to think that firing Belichick is the right move. Look, if Belichick decides to leave, it is what it is. He's old. Why not? I think he's been in the game long enough. He can walk away when he wants. I still don't hold him as vaunted as some others do, but I still recognize he's a great coach. He does cheat, but he is a great coach. I see the improvement in his players year in, year out, and I see how he maximizes who he has.
If I was going to question a coach's whether or not a coach was going to make it, like I did, like I won't lie, I like to toy with the idea that will he survive if he doesn't produce a great season? Just because, I mean, it's how most teams operate. But he's been in this franchise for so long, I doubt that it'll ever happen.
And it shouldn't.
If I was going to look at a coach that I would be worried about being in the hot seat, is more of Landry. And I know people talk about historically that the Steelers haven't really moved from their coaches like that. But the fact that he's a black coach is the only reason why I would think that if he doesn't produce in wins, there's a real good likelihood that they were like, you know what, I know normally we wouldn't, but who else is out there that we could actually pick up? And he also moved to get the one coach that was suing the NFL.
Flores.
Yeah.
I don't think that's happened. But let's go ahead and go into the next one. Jordan Love
You're not the
the
boss
Green
of me.
Bay
You don't
Packers.
tell me when we move on.
I actually just did. Jordan Love
I'm gonna tell your parents.
is the backup quarterback of Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, and he's been in the league now for years. So at the end of this season, because he was a first-round draft pick, he can have the 5th year of his contract picked up by Green Bay at their discretion.
Right.
He's come out and said that when posed the question, is he going to be in Green Bay next year?
Yeah.
He said, well, that's something that me and my agent will discuss, and we'll decide what's best for me. The thought is, look, you've been a backup for 4 years.
Yeah.
You probably don't want to sit anymore.
To some people would argue, one of the better quarterbacks to have been in the league.
Yeah, and so
not this season, but in the league.
but as a whole, do you want to stay there as his backup? How, like you can probably appreciate it for a little bit.
Yeah,
but eventually you need to make your way, right?
Definitely. If I was a backup, I'd give it 2, maybe 3 years, and after that, like, if you're not going to take me, then what am I here for?
Yeah, let me go somewhere else so I can prove myself before no one believes in me just because I'm older.
Yeah.
So
should Cooper Rush in this bitch?
Hey. So should Green Bay decide, look, we've already paid Rodgers. We have him under contract. We're going to keep him and let Jordan Love walk, or seek a trade for him? Or should they trade Rodgers? Which one do they keep? If you were running them, what would you do? Put aside what you think they're going to do. If you were running Green Bay, what would you do?
So, based on this season.
Based on everything.
Well, no, I'm basing off of this season.
No, based on everything. The age of the players.
Right, but because of
the situation of the team.
It plays into why I would go. So, because we're in a league of what have you done for me lately? Rodgers is not producing how Rodgers typically does. So, that he's having a very down season, and I know we just extended his contract, I would take what I could get for him.
So you're saying you would trade Rodgers?
Yes.
So conversely, based on last season, you probably felt, no, the right move is to keep Rodgers. He just won back-to-back MVPs.
Exactly.
Okay.
I would say, you know what? Get rid of Love. Let him get his shine on. I can draft another person. Give him 2-3 years because we just did the extension for Rodgers underneath him because it makes sense for the career. Like, give him another 2-3 years with the backup to learn underneath him. Let this guy go if he can find a starting position, a backup somewhere else. That's logically that's what makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, seriously speaking to what you said, that's how a team should operate. Yeah. If you feel like you have your starter, every couple of years you should draft somebody who could be the next guy, just in case something happens to your guy within the next 2-3 years.
Right.
And if nothing happens to your guy, get rid of him, draft somebody else.
I mean,
because you don't want someone just sitting there for 10 years as your backup.
And nobody wants to be a backup for 10 years.
No,
I mean, not without having an opportunity to actually move up. He's shown enough of a flash that he has starter potential. Maybe not.
He could be great. We don't know yet because we haven't seen enough.
That's what I'm saying. He shows that he deserves a shot at being a starter. Whether that means that he goes to a team that's in desperate need, maybe a Houston team, maybe I
don't know that would do him any good. I think sometimes if you operate like that, you go to the worst team, you shorten your career.
Definitely. I mean, that's what happens to in most cases, that happens. You have the Magic Mitch's moments. You have the Tannehill moments where, like, they went to a team that was really bad that you didn't think they were going to do anything, and then they lucked up and found another situation out afterwards. It doesn't happen often, though.
If he can go to a 500 squad, if he can go to, let's say, Washington, a team that's middle of the road but needs their next quarterback, I think right. Jordan Love has a better chance at succeeding than if he says, "Hey, Houston, I know you need me."
Well,
because he's not going to go anywhere doing that.
I'm not saying I'm going.
I don't think he's good enough to do that.
You're right. I don't think that either. I'm going off of organizations on how they tend to operate. Like we need somebody, so they might just jump at somebody who they hope that could turn it around.
Like Houston did with Simeon
Yeah.
years back. Yeah, I get that.
And that would be like the whole Broncos thing. Like Broncos tend to like anybody that shows a flash in the pan, they run over and try and snatch them up, and they don't bother to work on the other people that need help.
So for me and my take, I'm with you. I would actually get rid of Rodgers, see what I can get from him.
And you don't know how much that pains me as a Rodgers fan, because I think Rodgers. I mean, you make fun of me because I always say how he's a bad man, and it's just because he fucking has hurt my feelings in playoff games that I have that affinity for him.
I've always maintained that you have to be in the right situation
Yeah,
to succeed. I think you send Rodgers down to Arizona.
yeah,
I mean, Kyler Murray got hurt, tore his ACL, so you send him there. You know that he's definitely got a spot for a year, right?
Yeah,
and he's got weapons.
Yeah,
I think he'll succeed. And then you give Murray some time to recover.
yeah.
And if he recovers, you can say, hey, we're shipping you away because we got Rodgers. And if Rodgers wants to retire after 1 year, then cool. But I think that's a possible position you can send to.
You know, there's two teams that I say, like, when you hit that point of your career where Rodgers appears to be, you go to Arizona or you go to the Patriots.
Well, I mean, and also, think about this. Just throwing it out there. If I'm Green Bay and I tell Arizona, let's swap.
That's
you
a
get
fair
Aaron
swing.
Rodgers. I get Kyler Murray. I'm going to re-sign Jordan Love. Love, you got 1 year to prove it.
Right.
And I'm going to get rid of either you or Kyler.
Right.
Because Kyler ain't playing next year.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to re-up you because I have control.
Yeah.
And if you prove to me, we'll keep you. And if you
that would
don't
be
prove to me,
amazing.
then you can go somewhere else and make your career, whatever.
I feel like that'd be an amazing situation.
Wouldn't it work for all parties?
Yeah. It would be an amazing situation for Green Bay because now you have two dogs that are going to try and fight. So you have potential to create a great
Competition.
a great competition on who's going to be the starting quarterback. And we know Kyler's solid already as it is. It's not like he has a whole lot to prove other than now you have this young boy that's like, you know what? They're about the same class, maybe a year
About
apart.
the same age,
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, they're a year or two maybe difference from each other, but they're close enough. And you're going to see who deserves that spot in that. Like you're going to see what we talk about. We talk about these players that you sometimes need somebody to push you to really hit your potential.
Now, the likelihood of this happening, not very high,
This
but
is pure
should it
speculation.
happen?
Yeah.
Yes, it should happen.
Right.
Will it happen? Probably not.
Yeah.
But, all right. So now, more pressing. There's a podcast by Von Miller, NFL defensive end extraordinaire,
Yeah.
where he had Micah Parsons on his podcast, and he posed the question, is the success of the Eagles more because of Jalen Hurts and his greatness or just the greatness of the Eagles? Something to that effect, right?
Right.
And Micah paused when this question was posed. And Von Miller starts talking and says, look, man, I got to say, I think it's the Eagles team. I think it's the team. And then Micah piggybacks off that and agrees. And he says, look, yeah, I've been watching this, and they're great. I mean, Hurts is a really good quarterback, but it's a whole team.
Right.
They got dogs at all levels. And I think that it's more of a team thing than Hurts is their clear MVP.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with him.
Not
I know some people do.
Yeah, I know that there's people that are saying Jalen is the whole everything for this. But, I mean, I don't think that the Micah's wrong at all. I think even whenever me and you say it week in and week out when we're talking about the Cowboys, we talk about the reason why we say that Elliott isn't he's not washed up. You know, he serves a purpose on the team. Whenever we talk about Micah serving a purpose on the team, when we talk about all these different players. That, like, here's the thing. Here's the fact. Jalen is not throwing the ball to himself where he's catching every ball and making the touchdowns. Is he running here and there? Sure. Is he extending plays here and there? Sure. But he can't block for himself. He can't. He's not on defense. He's not on offense. Like both playing both sides, doing all the he's not. He's only playing one position, and doing that at a very high level.
Look. Here's the truth. With as good as Jalen Hurts is playing, because he's playing good quarterback.
Yeah,
he really is. He's not playing better than Patrick Mahomes. Remember last week when we were talking about quarterback stats?
Yeah.
And we were talking about yards per game, not just passing yards, but passing and rushing, right?
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes gets more. He's going to get you more of that. He's going to get you more total touchdowns. Even when you combine those rushing touchdowns to his passing touchdowns.
Yeah.
And this is what most people don't do. They don't add the fumbles.
Right.
You know, they'll throw out your interceptions.
Right.
But they won't include fumbles. And I'm not saying he's a fumbling machine, but if you're going to count the touchdowns as far as what makes him good,
right,
throw in the stats of the fumbles. You want to know something funny? I was looking up this week just to get a little bit off point. And it really had to do because somebody was talking about how the Cowboys create or get so many penalties that's going to be one of the things that does them in the playoffs, right?
Okay.
So they were criticizing the Cowboys for it. Well, in reality, this last week, Cowboys only got 3 penalties. Okay?
Okay.
But they are one of the leaders in overall penalties for the season.
Okay.
And this is how I know that they'll watch the Cowboy games or they'll watch more of the Cowboys than they will of other teams. Because as a whole, yes, the Cowboys do get a lot of penalties.
Yeah.
And Philly gets less, right?
Yeah.
But when they made this comment this past week against Tennessee, Philly had 12 penalties.
Yeah.
In the first half, they had like 5 or 6 false starts. Okay, I was watching the game. Now, if you don't watch the game, you don't know that stuff.
Right.
And a lot of these guys, we've told you, these quote-unquote experts, they don't watch the games. And I can't expect them to watch all the games because there's a lot of games.
Right.
And you only have so much time.
Although I do expect them to watch most of them because, well, it's their job.
I mean, at least watch enough of it.
Yeah.
But the reality is
at least
they
a
don't.
Quarter, half a game.
Half a game, yeah. The reality is they don't. And that's why they make those comments.
Yeah.
And here's something interesting that I found because I started putting the numbers together because I was doing a little nerdish stuff this week. So the Cowboys in total,
Kyle, you better watch it. She's gonna bite you.
In total penalties, yes, they are amongst the league leaders, right?
Right.
But when you divide that by how many games they played, and then you divide the amount of penalties that Philly has gotten by the amount of games they played.
Yeah.
You know how many more penalties per game Dallas's averages than Philly?
7.
1.
All right.
They, on average, get 1 more penalty per game than Philadelphia.
Okay.
But the Cowboys are the undisciplined team.
Right.
And look, they preseason, they had a bunch of penalties, right?
Yeah.
First game, they had a bunch of penalties. 2 games ago, they had a bunch of penalties. So the Cowboys, what I've noticed this season, they'll go in waves. 2-3 games with a lot of penalties.
Yeah.
Then they'll go 3-4 games with very few. So you're like, okay, they're getting it straight. No, they get a game or 2 with 10, 12 penalties. But still, when you average it out, they literally have 1 more penalty per game than Philadelphia. So when you're sitting there as a quote unquote expert, and you're telling me that the reason the Cowboys are not going to win is because they have more penalties, you're an idiot. Let me go one step further. I was looking also at turnovers.
Okay.
Right? To Philly's credit,
Uh-huh.
they only average 0.8 turnovers a game. So almost one, right? But not quite.
Right.
And their defense, on average, takes away 1.8 turnovers a game.
Yeah.
Okay? So almost 2, but not quite.
Right.
So they have a +1 average in turnovers a game, right?
Right.
So more than likely they're going to have one more turnover than what they give up. The Cowboys, just to keep on these two teams, average, I think it was 1.2 turnovers a game,
Okay.
right? And they average defensively getting, I think it was 1.6. And this is off the top of my head. I'll have the exact figures next week.
Okay.
But the Cowboys are getting the ball back more than what they're giving it away.
Right.
So, what the hell?
I did see some speculations on the turnovers that the Cowboys are doing.
But that's what I'm saying. Like they're talking about it as though the Cowboys are losing the turnover battle, and they're not.
Yeah. I think earlier today I heard somebody talking about how the question is, Dak isn't playing like he usually does. He's thrown over a few more
Picks
than
normal.
usual. And I was sitting there thinking about it, but he's also scoring more than he ever has. He's getting more yards than he ever has.
No,
No?
he's not. This year he hasn't had one 300-yard game.
Okay.
But I say that as a positive because he is the idea that he's playing reckless.
No,
that's the idea that they're saying.
Yeah.
That he's playing reckless is a false narrative.
I think they're playing more balanced, right?
They are.
Yeah.
So he is throwing. Let's say he's averaging a pick a game, right? He's averaging one pick a game. Cool. But the team is putting up over these last 8 games since he came back from injury,
Yeah.
34 points a game.
Yeah.
So if we are scoring 34 points a game,
Yep.
which is about a dozen more points a game than what we were scoring before, which is 2 touchdowns,
Yeah.
and I am throwing one pick a game,
Yeah.
and our defense is only giving up 3 more points,
Yeah.
is it really hurting us?
Right.
Because we extended
Yeah.
our win margin by 9 points.
Yeah. I had the argument this week too with somebody that's that the offense isn't really that we don't have an offense. It's just the defense. We only got a defense. Which, if you made that argument week 3, I'd have gave you that.
Yeah, definitely.
You would have made that argument week 4 and 5. I'd have still said you got a very valid
Up through
point.
week 6,
Yeah.
1,000%.
But as each week continues on, as we see Dakota Prescott back in here managing the team as he is with his touchdowns that he's throwing, handing it off to his running backs that he has.
The statistics say that the Cowboys are more likely to score a touchdown on a drive than to punt it.
With that being said,
One of the big knocks that as fans we've had on the Cowboys as a whole over the last decade is too often we get field goals when we should have gotten touchdowns. That is not the case this year under Dak Prescott. Are we throwing more picks? Yes. But are we scoring a lot more because we're not getting those field goals like we did for so many years?
yeah,
That we were like, oh my God, why do we have to go for a field goal?
yeah,
We're punching it in.
right. I mean, we also have Maher now, so
Again. All right. So, I think this leads right into our stupid takes. Dan Orlovsky and Rex Ryan, Monday, were on air bashing the Dallas Cowboys win over the Colts. For those who didn't see it, the Cowboys were in a tight game versus, not the Colts, the Texans, versus the Texans this past weekend, where they eked out a win in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott led a 98-yard drive. Zeke punched in the go-ahead touchdown, and the defense held up one more time to keep Houston from stealing the game.
Right.
And Dallas won by 4 points. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Orlovsky and Rex Ryan both went on national TV and said that this game was the example of why the Cowboys are not real contenders. When just 3 weeks ago, when the Philadelphia Eagles beat the Colts, who had just gotten one of their fellow analysts out of the booth or out of the TV screen to go coach the Colts.
Yeah.
First time ever as an NFL coach. They said that the Eagles were contenders because they were able to win a sloppy game that they weren't very good in.
Right.
The Eagles are contenders because they do that.
Right.
And the Cowboys are not contenders because they do that.
Well, as we all know, when you do the math, and it's Cowboys math only, it doesn't apply to all the other teams. Only whenever you're the Cowboys does the math change. But go ahead.
See, the math ain't mathing for me.
Well, that's because you're using regular conventional math. You're not using Cowboys math. You know, when you're talking about Cowboys math, what makes it different from the other math is we have qualifiers. You know, what makes... See, that's whenever you have the shoulda, coulda, wouldas that factor in, and that's why the Cowboys aren't the contenders or as good as everyone says that they should be or are.
See, honestly, for those who don't follow my live tweets when I'm watching the game, this last week, whenever the Cowboys were playing the Texans, I was tweeting out there that I'm actually liking this. Like the difficulty that's coming in this game, I'm actually liking it. If you remember last week, you noted that you thought that this was going to be a hard game, and that it was probably going to be tougher than a lot of people thought. I was like, I think Cowboys will beat them. I'm not worried about it.
Right.
But as the game was staying close, I was tweeting, I think this is good for the Cowboys. I think it's good because it is keeping their focus, keeping them from getting sloppy, and
some humble.
Yeah, it keeps them focused. That way, in that game, they don't think, okay, we're going to just roll over everybody.
Yep.
And it keeps them focused for next week, this coming up week, when they're facing the Jags, who just beat Tennessee, but otherwise aren't necessarily a good team, but they do have an up-and-coming quarterback.
Right.
And, you know, last year we were high on the Jags, so we think they have talent, but the Cowboys needed that Colts or that Texans game to be tough, so that way you didn't have to worry about them laying an egg against the Jags.
Yeah,
I think, and that's what I was enjoying about that game. And then the fact that they were able to pull out the win the way that they did, because Dak had just thrown an interception within their own 15 yards, and the defense had to make a huge stop. That adversity that they had right there, self-inflicted.
Yeah.
It really, being able to overcome that, it shows character and it builds character.
Right.
So I liked it. I don't want to see it every week. But if the Cowboys would have won 50-0, what would people have said?
If they would have said that they should have won, that it wasn't even a hard team to beat.
It doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
It's just the Texans.
Yeah.
They've only won one game.
Yeah.
They should have won by 100.
Right.
It was stupid. I don't even know why they played it. But see, they only do that against the sorry teams.
Yeah.
That's what would have been said.
Yeah.
Conversely,
that's what we heard all season last year while they were blowing people out on the water.
Conversely, though, after this, they said, see, the Cowboys always do this against sorry teams. Well, which one is it? Do they always blow out the sorry teams, or do they always do this against sorry teams? Because it can't be both.
Right.
Because when they beat Chicago 49-29, people were saying, well, yeah, but it's Chicago.
Right.
You only do that against the sorry teams. And when you beat Minnesota, who was, I guess, 10-1 or 8-1 or whatever it was, now 10-3.
Yeah.
But when you beat Minnesota, they're like, oh, yeah. But Minnesota's really not as good as their record says. Okay, what makes somebody as good as what their record says?
Right.
When it's not the Cowboys playing them? Because if it's the Cowboys playing them, oh, well, that team sucked anyways, no matter what their record was.
Right.
It's just so ignorant. Because the narrative comes out, they only blow out bad teams.
Yeah.
Then they beat a good team. They're like, yeah, but that team really isn't as good as their record is.
Right, right.
And then they have a close game against a bad team. See, they always do this. They always play down to their competition. People are stupid.
I also want to point out, while we're talking about people and their stupid opinions, that the Lions, they're 6-7.
They're looking hot to make the playoffs, right?
Yeah. And I just want to point out, for all those people that argued with me last season, argue with me this season about how Jared Goff he's just not a good quarterback. What I had been saying this season, because I realized what it was once they get their defense in order, they're going to be a hard team to beat. Because they're already hard enough as it is, because they're showing that their offense fires. Like, they're getting high scores. They're in the game within a touchdown, field goal when they're losing. Looking like the defense is actually starting to come together.
All right, listen to this. In the NFC North and the NFC South combined, those 8 teams, right?
Uh-huh.
Only one team has a winning record, and that's Minnesota.
Yep.
Okay? But only one team has scored more points than they've given up, and that's Detroit. They have a +2.
Right.
They have a losing record by 1 game. They're 6-7.
Yeah.
But they're the only team out of those 8 who has scored more points than they've given up.
Yep.
For everyone who says when a team comes back from being down big,
Yeah.
oh, they only get those stats because the other team stopped playing.
Yeah.
Because we hear that a lot when Dak is trying to make the Cowboys come back, right?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, those stats aren't real. They don't really count.
They call them garbage time.
Yeah,
fucking.
When that happens, it's garbage time, according to many.
Yeah.
But the reality is, when you look at Detroit, they've had to try to catch up. They've had to try to come from behind many times over these past 2 seasons. They've lost a lot of games really close.
Yeah.
Unless you're in the game at the end, you're not going to win. So whether you get the points early or you get the points late, you need to get the points.
That's true.
And Detroit has been getting them.
Yeah.
They'll have a couple games here and there where they don't show up or where they got held down, like Cowboys beat them 24-6.
Yeah.
But against so many teams, including Philadelphia early in the year, Philly was blowing them out. And then the next thing you know, Philly had to hold on to barely beat them by 3.
Yeah. I also want to point out for those people that are stupid, because I heard this while the Cowboys were playing this week, that they're getting their ass kicked. You guys are stupid.
The biggest margin that the Cowboys were trailing by was 6 points at the end. Otherwise, it was 3.
Yeah. So if you ever watch a game, especially football, and you're sitting here watching it and you're thinking someone's getting their ass kicked because of a 3-point
deficit,
you do not know the sport. You
don't know math. Jesus.
So I was annoyed because I was at work and someone said, "Man, the Cowboys are getting their ass kicked." And I was like, "Really? I thought it was only like 3 points difference." I was like, "Yeah, it looks like they're going to lose." And I looked at the time, and I think it was like 2 minutes left or 4 minutes left at the time. And I was like, that's plenty of time for a comeback. Like, it's plenty of time for them to get the ball and come back. And sure as shit, I think in that 4 or 5 minutes that I was, like, telling them that, I think the ball overturned twice in that time. Then there was the 55 seconds. And then the Cowboys came back and won the game. And I was like, but nonetheless, I don't know why. I told the guys, I don't know why you said they were getting their ass kicked. You want to say they were losing, I'll give you, yes, they're down. But I would never have called that getting their ass kicked. You want to say getting your ass kicked, 3-4 touchdowns down.
That's getting your ass kicked.
Yeah. And all game, not just, all of a sudden because, a pick six and you got a touchdown after and you were already up by 1. Like, no, that happened by luck or whatever.
It fell apart at the end.
Yeah.
So, aside from that, one of the things that I was seeing was not just stupid people saying that they were getting their butt whooped when clearly they weren't.
Right.
A lot of people were out there saying the Cowboys took the Texans lightly. I watched that game.
Yeah.
And you can tell by body language when you take someone lightly. The Cowboys did not take the team lightly. Yeah. Here's what happened. Cowboys go up 7-0.
Okay.
You kick the ball to the Texans, and they have to punt after 3 plays.
Right.
So you're about to get the ball back, but you fumble in your own territory.
Yep.
So they end up scoring. Now, you get the ball back.
Yeah.
And you don't move it. So you have to punt. The next time you get it, you score and you go up again.
Yeah.
You score 2 touchdowns in your first 3 possessions. And you're telling me that the offense isn't playing well. I mean, I think that's stupid.
Yep.
You're telling me that the Cowboys didn't come to play because they took them lightly when their first possession, you caused a 3-and-out.
Yep.
At the end of the game, they get the ball inside their own 15-yard line, and you force them to go 4-and-out.
Yep.
And the Cowboys didn't come to play. 3 weeks ago, people are bitching that the Cowboys defense cares too much about the sacks.
Yeah.
And need to focus more on stopping the run.
Yeah.
So for the next 3 weeks, the Cowboys' first focus is stopping the run, and then they get the sacks in the second half.
Right.
After the other team is playing catch-up. Well, this last week, people are bitching because the Cowboys didn't get any sacks.
Yeah.
Well, you know why? Because they were focused on freaking stopping the run.
Right.
They were having to try to slow down the Texans and didn't want to open up any big plays. They were down their second and third corners, and then Diggs got hurt in the game. So now they're playing with the hurt one starting corner that's hurt and playing.
Right.
And with the 4th and 5th string corner in the game. But the Cowboys didn't come to play. They took them lightly.
Yeah, 'cause
what
they weren't in
people
the game.
misunderstand is just because you as a fan expected a 30-point win
Yeah,
doesn't mean that the team is taking it lightly.
right.
Fans are stupid. Speaking of that, or not speaking of that, rather, Cowboys made a decent move.
Yeah,
They picked up T.Y. Hilton.
yeah,
So he was hurt at the end of most of last year, right?
yeah,
So he didn't really get any playing time. And this year, he was pretty much just waiting for a good opportunity.
yeah,
Passed all their tests, got on the field for them, showed them that he still had what he had previously had, and his medical records checked out.
yeah.
There's a good chance that he'll play this week
Okay.
against the Jags. But yeah, so the Cowboys picked him up. How do you like that move? Don't like it? Irrelevant?
I will say I don't see anything bad coming from this pickup. It can only help them. I will still stand on that Jerry did this so that way he can show his loyal fans that he is trying to win a Super Bowl. I will say I was caught by surprise by it because I could have very easily have seen Jerry saying like, well, I looked at some other players that were available and they all showed good promise, but we're winning already. There's no real reason for me to fork up any money to go after anybody that's not going to really make a difference if we're already winning. Which is what I was like once the whole Odell thing kind of was extended beyond a certain point. That's what I was expecting. So, do I think that T.Y. is going to make a huge difference? I have to see him in action to see what he does. I think he has a big enough name that if you're a team coming to play against us and know that he's there, you have to figure out a way. Who are you going to block? Are you going to go for CD? Are you going to go for Zeke? Or are you going to go for T.Y.? So only good things could come from it. Even if that's all that happens.
Look, honestly, I think he's a good insurance plan right now.
Yeah.
Noah Brown's playing well. I don't know if there was any regression from Gallup or anything because maybe that's why you're worried something might happen. Because when it's your knee, it's very questionable.
I'm the old school. Anytime someone has an MCL, ACL type of situation, I'm already thinking like, oh, you're done. Possibly for the rest of your career. Because of in previous years, a lot of times
it
that
used
was
to be
it.
career enders.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that he's a good pickup to have. The more time he's there with them, getting more reps in practice, then he potentially can have a bigger impact.
Yeah.
But I think going to the playoffs, it doesn't hurt you to have somebody who's been there before, right?
Yeah. And we talked off air how it also puts a new chip on the board as far as for if you're still going to go into negotiations with someone like Odell of saying like, well, look, you coming here, be great, but I don't have to break the bank for you.
And honestly though, just before we got on air, G-Bag Nation, which is one of the radio programs for 105.3 The Fan here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, they tweeted out that apparently, per their sources, Odell is still an option for the Dallas Cowboys that they're exploring sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Which I think really probably comes because Odell, I think, was getting all high and mighty on the idea that, look, I'm in control.
Bell of the ball.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think all the love he was getting from Dallas.
Yep.
And then Buffalo and New York both still interested in him.
Yep.
But then when he comes out with his comments that I don't really want to play till the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't think I need to. I don't have anything to prove. And the Cowboys signed T.Y.
Yep.
And Buffalo signs Cole Beasley.
Yep.
And now he only has New York, who hasn't won a game since they told him they wanted him.
Yeah.
Like, I think they've lost 3 in a row, or at least
Yeah.
it feels like they have. I think they have.
I know at least 2. I don't know if it's 3, but yeah.
Yeah. So, since then, I think he's at the point, like, he's like, oh, shit. So, call them up, see if they still want me.
Which
I'll start practicing so we can get me going by playoffs, because I wouldn't be mad at them signing both of them.
yeah, I mean, like I said, it definitely switches the chip up where, like, you know what? If a lot was riding on you, I might have to break the bank for you.
Well, also, though, if you really did want him,
Yeah.
and now you got T.Y., and T.Y. is going to be your help for this season,
Yeah.
you can sign Odell now before you're competing with other teams in March to sign him.
Yeah, that's true, too.
You sign him now, get him locked in for next year. If he contributes, great.
Yeah.
If not, fuck it. We're just going to count him next year anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, acquiring T.Y., I don't see anything bad happening from the acquirement. It's just now time to prove that you're still worthy of what you've done.
I mean, I heard some people bitching that, why are you going to get T.Y. when you need help at defensive line and corner and, like, well, look, we might need help there. That's true. But if there ain't nobody to sign, then why the hell are you going to say no to T.Y. just because you can't sign somebody else in some other position?
And somebody like a T.Y., like, again, he's not exactly a slouch. It's not like they went and grabbed Cole Beasley. And
Facts.
it's not a even really meant to be a slight at Cole Beasley because he serves a purpose too. But if you're going to compare the two, I'd much rather have a T.Y. than a Cole Beasley.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So, and that's the same case when you're talking about if you need another lineman, if you need another defensive player. Like, if you have the same equivalency of players that are there for you to pick from, then I'm going to go for the highest quality player that I can grab.
Look, if there was a comparable player to T.Y. out there at corner or at D-line that they could have gotten,
right.
I'm sure that they would have been like, oh, if they only had the choice of one or the other,
Yeah.
then they would have went the other way. But if they don't have that choice, why the hell are you going to say, no, let's just let our wide receiver suffer too?
Yeah.
That's just stupid.
Right. Exactly.
Next week, let's talk about D-Law and how he compares to Greg Ellis.
Okay. Save that for next week.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else we want to bring in real quick? No.
Nah, but it's kind of cool that I'm be finding the Jake Paul brothers.
The third brother that we didn't know about?
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, again, we're the Champs Podcast, if you guys didn't catch that early on. If you want to follow Coach Rudy, you can follow him at
On Twitter, at RudyV1982.
You can follow me on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, at SleepyJ, SLEEP_E_J. Please tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend about the podcast. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Until next time, take it easy.
Peace.